Welcome back. In May of 2002, a teen girl was found murdered in her bedroom. The case went cold for nearly 20 years, but police were able to track down her killer.
Right now, it's like the first day of the rest of my life.
Farrah Carter's family is breathing a sigh of relief, but they don't really feel closure.
It's very pleasing in a sense, but it's still heartbreaking. And without her being here to see what her life would have been like.
Miramar police say advancements in DNA technology led them to Joseph Pollard. He's accused of stabbing and killing the 15-year-old at her home in May of 2002.
No one knows what happened that day.
Carter's family does not know Joseph Pollard. Detectives say he is currently serving a life sentence in prison on a separate case involving kidnapping, burglary, and robbery.
We interviewed Joseph Pollard. He denies involvement. He denies that he knows the victim.
The motive for the murder remains unclear, but police are taking a close look at his criminal history that includes charges of violence toward women on several occasions. Now we turn to a case that shook up an entire community and the University of Miami football team. A senior player with the potential for NFL stardom was killed in 2006. Turns out his killer was in his inner circle. Bryan Pata, a senior defensive tackle at the University of Miami, left practice on November 7, 2006 and never returned to the field. The 22-year-old was expected to be an NFL draft pick. In 2017, NBC6 spoke to Pata's brother in a special report about the football star's unsolved murder.
He wanted to make it to the NFL and make my mother proud. And he wanted to help his family.
Police say Pata was ambushed as he got out of his car at his Kendall apartment complex. They called it a calculated murder. Now, nearly 15 years after he was shot and killed, detectives say it was Pata's former teammate, Rashawn Jones, who pulled the trigger. The former UM defensive back was taken into custody near Ocala and charged with first-degree murder.
Together, not only between the Pata family, Miami-Dade Police Department Homicide Bureau, and the Miami-Dade Police Department, but as well as the community, we all came together, and the final result is one that I hope can bring you a little bit of peace and a little bit of closure.
As for a motive, in 2017, Pata's brother expressed it was probably jealousy.
I believe it was more so of jealousy, a lot of jealousy. The way how Bryan carried himself, he was very bold, he was confident in what he did. He was confident that he was going to graduate college. He was confident that he was going to get drafted in the NFL.
Back in 2017, before the killer had been identified, Pata's brother told me he had already forgiven the person. He said there was nothing they could do to bring Bryan back. The loved ones of victims often feel a wide range of emotions. When cases go cold, it brings on so much anxiety and leaves so much unanswered. This next story was the first case I personally helped solve with Miami-Dade Police. Our report directly led to a tip and then an arrest, and the family is now at peace.
This guy has really been dodging the bullet for 4.5 years.
But not any longer. Miami-Dade police say the man who killed 23-year-old Danny Fundora is Otis Burns II. The day after Fundora's Unsolved Mystery aired on NBC6, someone called Crime Stoppers with a tip.
We followed that tip that led to the arrest.
Detective David Denmark and his team worked tirelessly since 2013 to track down the alleged killer. The murder occurred moments after Fundora and his cousin walked out of an Opa-locka supermarket. Detectives now know the motive was robbery.
After he was read his rights, he was very cordial with myself and my partner at the time. And he kind of bowed his head and he confessed of what happened.
He knew what he did, and he lived his life for 4.5 years as if he never did anything wrong.
Police say Burns had a family, worked a construction job, and went boxing regularly. He was arrested at an apartment just blocks away from the murder scene.
Had a relationship, got engaged, had a baby, got a job, while we're here dying, thinking, who is this person?
The victim's mother says she feels relieved and more at peace after the arrest. She hopes other parents facing a similar situation never give up their search for justice.
I definitely thank you, Laura, and NBC6, because thanks to you putting the word out there, you know, this case was resolved.
And that's what these stories are all about, helping families heal and find some sort of closure, some sort of peace. This next family was also able to see justice served thanks to our reporting. In 2016, a father was targeted and ambushed in a parking lot. We aired the story in 2022, and a viewer called in a crucial tip.
Jimmy Smith.
No bond for 54-year-old Jimmy Smith, accused of killing Gilbert Oosthuizen in June of 2016. An NBC6 report about the unsolved murder aired in December. Fort Lauderdale detectives say a witness to the crime watched the story and called in a crucial tip.
He was right there when it happened. He knows who the suspect is personally, and it just took him a little while to come forward, but I believe airing the story and letting people know that it was still unsolved is the catalyst that got that phone call to come in.
Kiana Hamilton is the victim's daughter. She says Jimmy Smith was friends with her father for years. They were also co-workers and once had a dispute on the job that led to the end of their relationship.
After getting fired, I think might have tipped him over the edge from what my family has mentioned, and just kind of took it out on my dad since my dad was above him work-wise.
He was definitely a person of interest, even I'd say a suspect from the very beginning, but we were lacking certain key details to move the case forward to an arrest.
According to Fort Lauderdale police, Smith followed Gilbert's every move on the day of the murder. They say he waited for Gilbert to leave work and followed him in his gray Toyota Camry to a Walgreens parking lot. Smith then allegedly continued stalking him at the Veteran of Foreign Wars post until he shot him multiple times in the middle of the day.
A lot of us still feel confusion as to how it escalated to that manner, especially when they didn't talk for so many years, to hold that type of grudge. So I think it'll give us, all of us, a lot more clarity.
Kiana says her family and friends definitely plan to attend court proceedings in hopes of getting a bit more clarity from Smith about why he pulled the trigger.
Honestly, I want to shoot for the maximum penalty. I don't feel like someone like him should even be out on the streets.
It just goes to show that even with cases where you might be lacking a key piece of evidence, you keep working it.
This next case was also solved thanks to a tip from an NBC6 viewer. But in an interesting turn of events, the call came from more than 1,000 miles away. On March 20th, 2017, Theodore Brown checked into the Courtyard Marriott in Doral. The next morning, Brown was found dead in the middle of the 4th floor hallway.
And there were children, there were families, there were people conducting business that were sleeping in that hotel with no idea that a murder had occurred right outside their door.
Brown's murder remained a mystery until November 2017, when NBC6 aired his case as an unsolved mystery. Although the crime happened in South Florida, the big tip came from more than 1,000 miles away from a police department in Washington, D.C.
There were members of that agency in the D.C. metropolitan area that saw this NBC coverage and contacted our homicide bureau, advising us they recognized one of the 2 individuals depicted in the surveillance video.
After a joint investigation, Miami-Dade police detectives flew to the Washington, D.C. area. They interviewed the woman who walked into the hotel with Brown, as well as this man. He was seen on camera entering and exiting the building. Video also shows the woman running after him toward an SUV.
We were able to develop enough probable cause for an arrest warrant to be issued for second-degree murder for the male depicted.
An arrest warrant shows Akram Paul confessed to shooting Theodore Brown at close proximity. Paul also told detectives he had driven the woman to the Doral Hotel for her to engage in prostitution with Brown.
The investigation into the female party depicted in the surveillance video is still ongoing.
During their confessions, Paul and the woman told police a dispute over money in a room on the 4th floor of this hotel led to the shooting. The warrant also shows the pair threw the gun in the ocean on Miami Beach and then started driving north.
You're being charged with second-degree murder.
In September 2018, Akram Paul was extradited to South Florida, where a judge ordered him held without bond. He now faces a second-degree murder charge.
It's through this cooperation with the public and other law enforcement agencies and members of the media that cases like this can be closed.
In Pembroke Pines, police had one major concern with a case from 2020. The victim was so decomposed they could not identify him, leading to a lengthy investigation. In the end, forensic genealogy testing helped crack this case. On June 8, 2020, Carlos Alba was running laps on the track of West Broward High School and smelled a strong odor.
I saw a body that had a rope, but I couldn't tell if it was from what tree it was hanging from. It was kind of hard to tell because it was a camouflage, with you.
At the scene, investigators found a journal, bug repellent, and knives. Detectives found the body severely decomposed and believe the man was living in the woods.
There was a commitment made by our detectives to not have him forgotten about.
Through forensic genealogy testing at a private lab, Pembroke Pines police identified the man as Stefan Scott Smith. He was from Georgia and 40 years old at the time of his death.
Those examiners were able to link the partial DNA from the molar to a living relative who was residing in Georgia.
Detectives flew to Georgia to meet with Smith's family. The family told police he had an undiagnosed mental illness and they did not report him missing.
Stefan was known to travel throughout the country by way of hitchhiking, not being able to have stable employment where he was rooted in one particular area, so there were loose connections with the family.
According to police, the medical examiner's report revealed the cause of death was strangulation, and the death was ruled a suicide.
We are 100% confident that there is no criminal activity associated with this case as far as an offender or a suspect is concerned.
Smith's family did not want to participate in an interview, but told detectives they are grateful for their hard work and determination. Many police departments in South Florida have dedicated units working around the clock, looking specifically into unsolved cases, reopening files, re-examining evidence, and revisiting witness testimony. A common message I often hear from cold case detectives to killers who think they may have gotten away with murder is no matter how many years have passed, we're coming for you. That's all for us now on this special edition of Cold Crimes. Thanks for watching.